This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Not sure if one of my co-hosts requested this song, but hey, everyone, welcome to OverDrive. Mark Rowe in for Brian Hayes, joined alongside two of the finest gentlemen ever to come out of the province of Alberta. That's right, Jamie McLennan and Jason Strudwick. How are we, guys?
I'm good. What's going on today?
I found myself in this studio. I guess Brian had better things to do today, but usually when he's not in, something big happens. I don't know if the market can take something big happening over the next 2 hours or not.
Struddy, what do you make? I mean, you think something else can happen in Toronto in the next couple of days or what?
I don't know. I can't stop watching. I feel like I'm living in Toronto right now, right? Like the press conference and then the news dropping about the first overall. What was that, Tuesday night? Like, yeah. Even my friends who are here, they're who are Leafs fans, they're creeping out from underneath their hiding places, and they're getting a little bit cocky almost now with the big first pick.
As someone who lives in the city of draft lottery champions, how do you feel about Toronto taking a few steps on your turf?
You know what? I remember the night that Noodles, I think it was Noodles and Hayes, and I can't remember who else was up, maybe O-Dog, the night that the Oilers won the golden ticket for McDavid. And I came on the show, and like Hayes said, how are you feeling about the Oilers getting? What's the community feeling? I said, I'm not as happy the Oilers getting it as I am the Leafs not getting it. And my Twitter exploded. I got absolutely destroyed, and it was probably the best night of my life, how mad Leafs fans are at me. So, you know what? Now you made up for it. Is it Gavin McKenna? Are we getting that statue built or no?
I mean, listen, McKenna seems like the consensus one. But what I like this for the Leafs, Struddy, is it gives them options now. Because, they had a tough couple days. Like, let's just lay out the timeline. And, Ro, you could probably concur with this. Mm-hmm. The rumblings is John Chaika and Matt Sundin. And you're like, okay, people are like, okay, what's that going to look like? What's that going to sound like? Is that the best they can do? You had a lot of people weighing in on that. So Monday comes the press conference. And, Chris Johnston was down there. And we had him on the show, and we just said, what was it like? And he just used the word uncomfortable, awkward, like these types of adjectives, because he was saying like it was a bit weird. And then Steve Simmons came with that heater question, which kind of painted them into a corner, and everything was just noisy after that. Now, that being said, the next day they win the lottery, and in the next day, I believe that same day, correct me if I'm wrong, Ro, Chris Johnston writes an article in The Athletic saying that, Austin Matthews not sure of his future, weighing out options or whatever it was. I'm paraphrasing. So there's just all this noise going on and all this angst. And I think Hayes summed it up best, saying, the Leaf fans haven't had much to cheer about in the last calendar year, when you look up really since since they lost to Florida in such a terrible fashion on home ice, and then really never got their legs underneath them last season. There was injuries, inconsistencies, and they needed something to, put their hat on. So winning the first overall pick, I think, is something that's really positive for Leafland, and I think it's something that gives John Chaika and his management group some options now, depending on whatever happens with Austin Matthews and what you're going to do with the plan moving forward. You can't take that first pick away from them, Struddy. And that's kind of, I think, what people are like, okay, let's get up off the mat here. And if there is going to be a rebuild, having the first pick doesn't hurt. Now, all of a sudden, that could maybe help accelerate things. And I think that's where people are at.
Well, the assets, right? That's a huge asset. So whatever you decide to do, if you add that in, or, I don't know if they'd ever trade down. I'm not sure. I still think the defense, to me, is really important. They need more puck movers, right? They've got some stout defenders, and I think they maybe went too overboard with that, because a lot of those guys can play, but you need people that can move the puck. You need complementary players. So, listen, I'm not suggesting you take a D-man at, like Daxon Rudolph or someone at one, but, can you find a way to manufacture some of those D-men for your back line?
Well, and I wish you guys were in studio, because about 15 to 20 minutes before showtime, we had Doogie, JP, and Joe from the Bridge all in here workshopping about 12 different scenarios that all led to the Leafs winning a cup in the next 4 years. So,
well,
you're missing out.
You know what it is? All it entails is like, okay, in 2 years, McDavid's coming. Matthews is going to be here. Nate McKinnon's going to leave Colorado.
They're
all going to, Makar. They're all going to sign for $1 million, and you're going to trade for their rights for Troy. Troy Stetcher's going to get it done going the other way.
Of course.
Like that's the type of asinine stuff I have to listen to on a daily basis when Joe from the Bridge and his cronies come in there and they start making things up. So at the end of the day, what you do have is Canadian teams that there's work to be done outside of. Montreal lost last night, and I thought they were kind of feeling their way through it a little bit. Buffalo deserves credit. But there's a lot of teams either licking their wounds or have to get right back to the table and get back on the horse, including the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Edmonton Oilers and the Ottawa Senators, the Winnipeg Jets, the Calgary Flames, Vancouver Canucks. There's lots of teams that have work ahead of them, Strud.
Oh, there's tons of work to be done and all over. And everyone's got their own issues, right? Like the Flames are trying to add as much talent as they can, young talent. The Canucks are maybe a little bit further down that road, but they're probably obviously disappointed about not having that first overall pick. The Oilers are trying to get back on top, so they got to solve some things, including a net.
Yeah.
And Mark, the net finding for the Oilers is a pretty significant topic for anyone who's even watched an Oilers game this year. So that's a big deal. But they all have their own. Every team has their own. Ottawa needs better news. Probably, I think they need a goal scorer, a guy that can plot 30 every night.
Top
every night,
six,
every year,
and you got Nick Jensen coming off the books, so probably another right shot defenseman that could play in your either 4-5 role in that situation, because the Jordan Spence, I think, showed that he can push up. But I look at it, every team has a wish list. The problem is can you execute it with the cap going up? And a lot of these teams either don't have currency or they need some currency. So when the market is going to be clogged, I'll give you an example. Like, the Toronto Maple Leafs put their hand up and say, we want 4 new defensemen. Where are you acquiring them from when you don't have a lot of assets? Yeah. And are you going to go scorched earth? Like, I think that's where I'll come back to. The options that the Toronto Maple Leafs have, everything should be on the table, because now you've got the first pick. So if you are looking at a rebuild, you could maybe expedite a little bit with that first pick. If you're looking at a retool, you're going to have to move some players out and spend some money. The Leafs don't have a problem spending to the cap. But I look at it, Montreal is a team that I think is probably best positioned not only for now, but for years to come, based on the team they have, the currency they have, and the young players. They got Enstrom and Reinbacher in the minors. Like, they've got Fowler sitting on the bench. This could be the next Carey Price. So I think Demidov's just first year into the season, so first year in the league. So they've got lots of options, but just different types of options than the other teams.
I feel like they're the one Canadian team that this offseason, in a way, will have their feet up, because they've done their work, and obviously the work never ends. But you look at Ottawa, as you guys point out, they're trying to take that next step while also deal with their captain potentially wanting to leave. I know that's speculation, and there could be no truth to that, but that is a story that's in the nation's capital. We just discussed the Maple Leafs. Winnipeg, Connor Hellebuck essentially telling the team, we better start making some moves now, or I might be out as well, and get back to being a cup contender. And what they do with their pick is going to be fascinating. The Oilers, Struddy, and Connor McDavid, we know that there's a timeline there. Less urgency with Calgary and Vancouver, but it's going to be, with the cap going up and some really big names that could be on the move, this could be a wild off season.
Yeah, it could be. And it's funny. You think back to 2-3 years ago, and I don't know who maybe you guys would be able to kind of chime in, but I said on this show, I believe, that the Canadian teams have most never been in better shape. There's so much talent north of the border that I want to say is make Tkachuk out of Calgary, and then Johnny Gaudreau signs with Columbus. And then you just start, Mitch Marner leaving, Quinn Hughes, all these people that are all this talent, was for one reason or another leaving. And now these teams are, retooling, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it. So what a change a couple of years makes for north of the border.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think also we're not even factoring the Hellebuck comments in Winnipeg. And I don't, listen, they've got a core there. I really like that team. I think they're a couple pieces away. Keep in mind, Kevin Cheveldayoff, this hasn't been, when you go to free agency, this isn't a number one destination spot. And, Struddy, you and I grew up in Edmonton. It's sometimes it's not these cold weather places, aren't the number one destination spot. So you have to pay, I call it either cold weather tax or tax to be in a Canadian market, all of that type of stuff. But Winnipeg's had a really good team. And if you think about it, yes, it's been noisy in Toronto, noisy in Edmonton, a little bit of noise in Ottawa. But Winnipeg won the President's Trophy a year ago and then missed the playoffs. Now, Hellebuck hurt. They're, they've got a core there that I really like. But Nikolai Ehlers left. They've got a scenario there where they've got some questions that need to be answered as well. So we have to throw them into the bucket with all these other teams that we're talking about, where they need to have a good summer to get right back on the horse. And I'll throw one other thing into this mix, guys, when it pertains to the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you want to be like Boston, Boston had an off year, they crashed and burned, and they came right back this year and made the playoffs. My question would be, and I know it changes from year to year, and I said it yesterday, who's coming out in the Atlantic next year? Like, that's I would argue Florida's going to be right back into the mix. I don't know what that looks like. But you've got Ottawa, you've got Detroit that wants to have another offseason to get better and better. And the teams that we're talking about, Buffalo, Montreal, like these teams aren't going anywhere. So the Leafs are going to have to not only be dealing with themselves, but dealing with the division they play in. And the max is 5 teams out of that division makes, that's really because 3 from the Metro have to make it. So that'll be the challenge that has to be factored in for John Chaika and his group as well.
Yeah, the Atlantic Division, it's not that pillow fight division that the Oilers play in. But speaking of the Oilers, so we have Pierre LeBrun coming up at 4:30. We have Pierre Laviolette at 5:05. And we have Evan Bouchard at 5:30, who's getting set now to play for Team Canada at the World Hockey Championship. And today, the Norris Trophy finalists were revealed. Is it a full-blown snub that Bouchard is not one of the 3? It's Rasmus Dahlin, Cale Makar, and Zach Werenski. What do you guys think? What was your reaction when you saw that Bouchard was not one of those 3?
Strud, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take this one. I'll sound like a homer. I do think it was a snub. I think he should have been a finalist. I don't have him as a winner, but I think as a finalist for sure. You look at the points, so that's one aspect. It's not all of it. You look at the way that he killed penalties of all the guys who are kind of near the end, or the top 5 or 6. He killed the most penalties, so that was something that was out there that people talked about. He kills a lot of penalties for the Edmonton Oilers. Power play points, his passing. I think there's a bias towards this player, because often when you see the highlights, they're extreme highs of plays, and then sometimes you see plays that are, just poor decisions at the other end that you may not see with some of these other guys. So I think there is a bias to these players, or to this player, for those who don't watch every minute of his play. Noodles.
I agree. So I'm a voter. And I had him winning the Norris, and I'll tell you why I did that. A lot of what you laid out, Struds, the points are one thing offensively, but passes, I dug in analytically. I talked to Mike Kelly from, Sport Logic. I spoke to a couple other AGMs throughout the league. The one thing that really stood out for me with Evan Bouchard is everyone, there's just this narrative about him. And you're right. I think his mistakes are always on SportsCenter, glaring, where Zach Werenski's aren't on SportsCenter because nobody pays attention to Columbus, respectfully, in Canada, because it's, they're focused on the Canadian teams. So here was a stat that stood out for me, and I was given to it by a couple different companies, where turnovers that led to goals, and Evan Bouchard, I believe, had 13. So I guarantee you all 13 of those would have led SportsCenter, or at least been on there. And here's a bad turnover here, and, Evan Bouchard up to it. Zach Werenski had 12. Connor McDavid had 12. You start to look but you look at what Bouchard did defensively as far as killing penalties. He had 50 more minutes on the penalty kill than anybody else. That includes Makar, you name it, all of the top defenders in the NHL that were in that mix. his pass rate out of succession of passes, all of that type of stuff. So I know O-Dog would probably charge the mound right now with me quoting analytics. But
we've already hit our quota for the 2 hours.
I did dig into it. And I struggled with it because I think Dahlin had an amazing season. I think Werenski did. I don't use the word snub, but I think if there's 5 or 6 guys, Lane Hudson was outstanding in Montreal as well. I believe I had him 5th or 6th. But the point being is I don't think there's a bad choice. I think what happened is it had to be narrowed down. Now, I do agree with you, Struddy. I think there's a narrative a lot around when you just say the word Evan Bouchard, people are like, oh, great offensively, terrible defensively. But if you actually look at the way the game is played today, the game is about exiting your defensive zone. And he's probably one of the best first passes in the National Hockey League. Ask Connor McDavid. Ask Nate McKinnon, who had Makar at the Olympics. And I think that was still one of the biggest mistakes that Team Canada make. McDavid should have had Bouchard, and I think Makar could have been there for McKinnon, and they would have been able to exit the zone a little bit quicker because those guys would pass. And I know I'm getting long-winded, but just think of this. Had that have been Evan Bouchard in overtime that did what Cale Makar did, you'd never live it down. Because Cale Makar pinched on that play and caught a rut and missed it.
For sure.
And McDavid
he should have never been on Team Canada.
Right. Well, people would be like, "How you look at this?" Mm-hmm. So the point being, there is a stigma around the guy. He's not going to win, but I think he's a lot better than people think defensively. And I also think that he's elite offensively, which is tough to do. You tell me a 95-point defenseman that they wouldn't build a statue for in most Canadian cities. If they played for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Including Toronto.
Yeah.
Well, they need him.
Yeah.
They need a guy like that. That's what they need. They need someone to move the puck up.
But again, apologize for getting long-winded. I'm not upset that the other guys were right there because they're great players and had great seasons. So I don't look at that as a snub. Mm-hmm. I think it's nice to be recognized, and I think it's nice that when you're in that conversation and you're 24 years old, I think Bouchard's now 25, you could be in that conversation for the next 10 years if you continue to progress in your play. So congratulations to the other guys. I had them on my list, and obviously a bunch of other voters did because they were the finalists, and they deserve to be there.
Well, since you picked him to win, if you want, you can ask him the question about the Norris Trophy when he joins us.
Listen, I love Lane Hudson. I love all the guys in there. They had great seasons.
I think we were talking about this a few weeks ago, just how great of a defenseman class this year is, and how that a lot of the awards are pretty tough this year, but it seems like maybe the Norris takes the cake with that, where you can make an argument for 5 or 6 different defensemen and just their value to the team. And again, do we make an offensive defenseman award and a defensive defenseman?
Well, Ro, I'm sorry to interrupt. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. Yeah. Is I think there should be. There is an Art Ross where somebody just wins the points, mm-hmm. and then you go to the Hart, you go to the Ted Lindsay.
Selke.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is if you had just a defensive award for most points and then you had the Norris, I think you might see the Norris get different votes. A guy like Jacob Slavin or Lacombe or like some of these guys who are actually complete defensive players that actually contribute offensively. So you don't just go, oh, that guy got 90 points, he's got to be in there, or this guy's dynamic or whatever. I think you could have 2 separate awards, and it might actually shave off some of the bias towards the points as opposed to the word defenseman, defending.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I think that makes so much sense. It's way overdue.
You like that defensive defenseman award, don't you, Struddy?
I do. You know what? Just to recognize what they do, because it's funny. No one really talks about them getting the playoffs. Everyone's got to defend. Well, you see the guys that do kind of elevate their play defensively, and I think it would make sense separating it. That is because it's unfair. I think the Selke clearly makes a difference in that voting. I really think it does.
All right, so looking forward to chatting with Evan Bouchard at 5:30. Again, Pierre LeBrun and Pierre Laviolette are going to join us. I should just dive in a little bit into the fact that I'm in for Brian. Obviously, O's not here. Struddy, you're filling in admirably for him. There's some golf competition going on at Copetown Woods called the Lincoln Cup. Noodles, I'm sure you got invited as a caddy, and you said, no, I'd much rather work with Mark and Struddy.
I would much rather work with you guys than hear those two that are playing on the golf course. But, I've heard, I think Carlo and those guys were on the course this morning, and Hayes and
Duffy's there, and
nobody called me. They didn't even want
That's a shame.
No, it's not a shame because they know that I would have accepted, and they didn't want to waste their time and my time. Like, why would I go and sit there on the course and waste their time? I'd be on my cell phone.
For your personality,
well,
like we have for everything.
Not allowed to day drink and be on air, so I mean, I'll just be sitting there. So
day drink and have a couple snacks because apparently the Snickers, they have a few of them at Copetown Woods. This is what was waiting. Now, I don't know if this means that it's all this, and if you're not watching, there's like a glass case of about 20 Snickers bars. But there's a lock and a chain around it. And I don't know if that's O's lock and chain and he's taking it home, or that's Copetown Woods saying, okay, fool us once, don't fool us a second time here. Oh, you can't take the whole basket.
Well, the problem is Struddy, I don't know if you know, but this guy will steal anything that's not nailed down.
No,
that's because you know what guys are like. I played in so many dressing rooms, guys making $5 million a year, and a guy will walk in with a box full of free T-shirts that he got from Red Bull or something and throw them in the middle of the room, and there'll be a dog pile for these free T-shirts. And guys will be stealing them and stuffing them in their coat and leaving. I've played on teams where, like, the trainers have had to lock up the razors because there's guys that steal, like, the Bic razors. Because anything that's not nailed down, guys are like that. And, the other day, I don't know if you saw this, Strut, he got caught.
I saw it.
He got caught asking, this is awful, asking, like, the manager of the golf course for a paper bag, and then he walked over and loaded up the gift bag and walked out. And didn't have no shame and doubled back to finish off and throw some chips and another chocolate bar in there. So Hayes was rattled. Now everybody's handing Snickers out to Hayes because he got jammed up by, here's the video. Look at him. He asked the manager, can I get a paper bag? And then he proceeds to walk into, this is the best part, Struddy, though. He's in there by himself, and people start walking in and saying, what is this guy doing? He's stealing. And he loaded up his bag.
And he is so comfortable doing it. He's not looking around. Like, I'd be so.
Yeah,
I'd be
if you're
nervous.
Stealing something, you've got this guy's walking up and he's stealing, and people start to walk into the room and go, is this guy taking all the food on that one table? And he loaded it up.
It's a skill.
That's why everything is under lock and key at this other golf course.
Do you think he's so used to being an NHL player because I remember the first time I went to an NHL event, and I think it might have been with you, Noodles, and I looked at the table, and there's all these things, and you looked at me, I think it was you, and you said the Never Hungry League, right? Like everything is there, and I was almost like, are we allowed to take there's probably like chips and granola bars or something, but that's like there's a status, right?
Did he have a long drive home? Like, was it a 10-hour drive? Like, what's he loading up for?
He's loading up because he this is the thing.
It's for his wife.
He said his wife likes a little late night snack once in a while. Like, so I'm like,
he's a true gentleman.
Yeah, he is a great gentleman, a great husband. But I mean, come on, like, take one. He loaded up a paper bag full of it, and now the big joke is they've got to put stuff under lock and key, or this guy will just load it into the back of his car. So I don't know what's happened at that golf course today, but I'm anxious to. But you know what? At the end of the day, so be it. I would take some stuff, though. You see all these trade center shows and all of that. Like, they're all loaded up.
You know what it reminds me of? It's Struddy, you'll appreciate this. When Dallas Aikens became the head coach of the Oilers, and he changed the whole media spread, and it went from, like, Snickers bars and donuts to fruit and the uproar in your city.
Oh, people were mad.
Yeah.
People were mad, and I wasn't there every day, but then I was going a little bit more often and into those more, and the guys, like, couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. And listen, that's a bridge too far. Like, let the guys
don't
have
mess
the
with the
donuts
media's
in the morning.
food.
They look forward to it, right? Yeah. It's like your morning coffee. You dunk a donut in there. You're on their way.
Well, you know what? Free food is for everybody. And that's what thing is Hayes was mad because there was nothing left when he went to circle back. He had his eye on it, and it was gone because the plate was empty.
Well, I hope the guys are having fun. I hope they're doing well on the course, and clearly someone's going home with some Snickers. So always great to filling in for Brian Hayes. Again, if some major news happens, Well, we should expect it. But coming up next, our hockey insider Pierre LeBrun, who's in Buffalo for the Sabres and Canadian series. So he was there for Game 1. We'll get his thoughts on that. As OverDrive continues on TSN 4 and 5, the TSN app, your home speakers, and live on YouTube. OverDrive continued. Mark Rowe in for Brian Hayes today alongside Jamie McLennan and Jason Strudwick. Our hockey insider Pierre LeBrun standing by. He is in Buffalo as we're in between games 1 and 2 of that series between the Sabres and the Canadians. And Noodles, we failed our audience a little bit last night. We were on the Canadians panel, and
yes.
we missed a really big part of the game that we did not analyze whatsoever. And
What did
that
we
was
miss?
a Leaf fan in the crowd wearing a Gavin McKenna jersey, because if Leaf fans can't get more obnoxious, well, here you go.
But why is he even there? I don't understand. Why be a jackass and go to a playoff game that doesn't include your team with a different jersey? Doesn't make sense.
Fans can do funny things, I guess.
No, I don't. I'm not down on him for getting a McKenna jersey. That's pretty cool. I mean, I guarantee you those will be flying off the shelves.
But you're asking for it, going into hostile territory. That's one of your rivals.
But what you do is shine a light on, it's not a good thing. This team didn't make the playoffs. It shines a light on, hey, I'm cheering for a team that's, in the downtrend
It'd be
right now.
Last year, an Islanders fan going to a playoff game with a Matthew Schaefer jersey.
Right. It's great. Matthew Schaefer will win. He should win unanimous Rookie of the Year. But I guarantee you there'll be somebody in Montreal that goes Dobush or Demidov. There'll be somebody in Anaheim that goes Seneca. But, it should be hands down Matthew Schaefer. But as great a player and amazing of season as he had, they didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Isn't that the crazy part?
No, that's true. Yeah. Well, speaking of Buffalo, we're going to go there now. Our hockey insider, Pierre LeBrun, joining us on OverDrive. Pierre, we were just showing that Leaf fan, because Leaf fans, they need the attention on them, wearing the Gavin McKenna jersey to Game 1 of a series that does not involve the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Listen, I respect I respect that Leafs fan being intrigued by coming to this series. I guess he wanted to get a first-hand look at the two teams that will dominate the Atlantic in the next decade.
Wow. I knew it. I knew something was coming. I knew it. I love it.
I don't blame him.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me a little bit of the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants are on the rise. Oh. You know that's true. Sorry, I have to slip that in there, Pierre.
Giants. So now you're taking on two of us. You're taking on Pierre and myself, Struddy, so watch
You're
out.
You're a Cowboys fan, too?
I am, so watch out.
Keep the quarterback healthy in New York there, big guy. Let's see if he can get through a full.
That's true.
Before we get on to what should be a great series, because you've been traveling and you've been in different cities, what has been the reaction to the Leafs getting the number 1 pick, and how much it changes the offseason surrounding that organization?
It's been disbelief, I think, in a lot of markets that are tired of the attention that the Leafs get all the time. and the juxtaposition of how brutal that news conference was welcomed, I think, in the Toronto market. And 24 hours later, the excitement for Leaf fans of winning the draft lottery. That's as dramatic, a range of emotions as you're ever going to see, certainly in an off season, I think, for a franchise. And obviously, it's you got a lot of people around the league talking about it, no doubt about it.
So, Pierre, last night's game, what did you make of it? Was it two teams trying to, settle in and feel each other out? Buffalo looked like they had a little bit more jump, a little bit more pop. Montreal might have had a little fatigue coming off that Game 7 against Tampa. But, to me, the way I looked at it, I don't know how you felt, but Buffalo's such a different team than Tampa. Tampa tried to bully them and almost take it to a back alley fight, where Buffalo just tried to skate them, and it looked like they were able to have some success just through their speed and skill.
Yeah, bang on, night and day. What a contrast for Montreal having to play a fast team like Buffalo now. And listen, Lindy Ruff will tell you too, as he did today, that playing Montreal is totally different for the Sabres compared to Boston too. So both teams kind of adjusting. I don't think Game 1 was that great. I think it was kind of a tepid. Both teams, putting their feet in the water and trying to get a read on each other. The most impressive part of the night for me was seeing the way the Sabres closed it down the third period. They had a 2-goal lead, and I don't know how you guys feel, but I think game management is a rare skill among a lot of young players coming into the league in the modern NHL. And it feels like a 2-goal lead isn't enough for a lot of young players. And the Sabres, and Lindy Ruff talked about this after the game, the Sabres since December have learned to play the clock and to do more mature things. And that was a clinic last night in the third period. I don't know what the Habs were smoking. They felt they could build after the third period. Well, of course, you had the puck. The Sabres were sitting back and just pushing you out to the perimeter. I mean, that was really impressive by Buffalo to see how they can close down a game like that again. And they've been doing it for a while. But I do think we'll see a better Montreal team. That top line that has been scrutinized. I mean, Cole Caulfield today met the media for the first time in 6 days, and he's feeling it. He hasn't scored an even strength goal in the entire playoffs. This is a 51-goal scorer. You saw it last night. There was more space out there. There was more time with the puck. It was maybe almost a shock to that line after what happened against Anthony Cirelli in the first round where they had no time. And I think you'll see a much better game from that top line in Game 2.
Well, that's where I want to go. The top line, offensively, they haven't had a lot of juice. It's what we come to expect from them. Is there any chance you think either, for the next game or moving forward, they might tweak that line again like they did a little bit in the first round?
Yeah, Stretty, I mean, they did it late in that first round because they basically, Marty St. Louis had no choice by the end of that series. I mean, Cirelli and Hagel had dropped an absolute blanket on that line. And so they had to get Slavkovsky elsewhere, and they broke up those guys. I think they start the game together tomorrow night. I thought they had some good looks. Slavkovsky, especially to me, looked really dangerous last night. Suzuki got the power play goal. So really, it's Caulfield that to me does not look at his normal level of confidence. He said today that he does remain confident. I should pass that on, but I like to look down between the TV timeouts and between the whistles and look at a player's body language. And there's a couple of times where he went back to the bench with the shoulders slumped. He's going to need a pick-me-up. And honestly, it could just be a greasy goal and a redirect. I don't know what it's going to take, but he's not quite there right now for me, like the guy we saw score 51 goals.
Joined by your hockey insider, Pierre LeBrun. And, of course, I should point out, a lot of Sabres fans are big fans of this show. So let's give them their flowers. And, you've been to a lot of big games at the Bell Center, and we always talk about how that atmosphere is second to none. What's it been like? It's only been the one game, but what was it like last night in Buffalo, and just where that organization has turned things around so drastically since, a third of the way into this regular season?
I mean, it was electric. Oh boy, they are so pumped in this town for the Sabres. It's sort of like that passion for the Bills and the passion for the Sabres, and it's just colliding in this springtime moment right now. And man, if the Sabres win a Stanley Cup, I don't even know what the city of Buffalo is going to look like at the end of that night. It really is unbelievable. And you're right, I felt it in the first round in Montreal. I mean, again, in the rink, outside the rink. These are the two markets right now that seem to be living it up like no one else left in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So there's just, in Buffalo, I think it's just the years and the pain and 14 years out and, losing in the 99 Cup final, toe in the crease, all these things. Throw in some football heartbreaking moments with the Bills, and it's all built up really tightly in this emotion right now in this market. It's unbelievable. And, of course, goes without saying what it's like in Montreal, where it's not just about a hockey team, but honestly part of their identity, Habs fans in terms of what that team means. So this is a great series, I think, in terms of the two fan bases trying to outduel each other. But I'll also say this, that I could tell from, being part of it in the Athletic and a group discussion with fans during the game last night, Arpin Dasunai, there's a lot of respect, mutual respect between Sabres fans and Habs fans about sort of the parallel ascent of their respective teams at the same time. I mean, this is really a series that represents the changing of the guard in the Atlantic Division. That doesn't mean that it'll always be these two teams, but there's certainly a decent chance we're going to see a lot of Sabres and Habs over the next several years here in the playoffs.
I agree. And I love the fact that there is, that mutual respect between fan bases where it's like, hey, we feel your pain, same type of situation. But they're both very, very passionate. We know what the Habs are like. We know what their fan base is like. They're noisy in both languages. They're very passionate. I love that. I wanted to seeing today a lot of the questions, and Pierre, I wanted your reaction on this because it kind of fires me up. Because I look at Dobush, who was unbelievable in the first series, and I thought he was okay last night. He wasn't tested a lot, but you couldn't blame those goals on him. There were 2 screenshots, but at the end he gives up 4 goals and 16 shots. And they're already going, is it time to maybe take a peek at Fowler? And I'm like, okay, is this guy not allowed to play game 2 without there being whispers? I mean, Hudson falls down at center ice. Dobson sticks to the ice here, Strutty. I don't know what's he doing with the slide. You're supposed to slide. He sticks to the ice, and it's a perfect pass by Benson backdoor. So not a lot you can do for these goals against. But now you're hearing whispers of like, what about Dobush? Maybe Fowler should go in. And, anything today you take out of their media, Pierre?
Yeah, so Marty St. Louis was asked last night about Dobush's performance, and he absolutely vehemently defended his goalie pretty much the way he just did. I mean, he said he had no chance on the first 2 goals, and of course there were 2 power play goals. One of the power play goals as a result of a failed clear. His coach absolutely backed his goalie. There wasn't much talk about it today, nor should there be. 4 days ago, he's the reason they survived Game 7. You're never going to have 9 shots on goal, ever. In the next 100 years of the Stanley Cup play, a team will never win a Game 7 again. Dobes stood on his head, and throughout that series, and I was at every game, stared Andrei Vasilevsky, the former Vezina Trophy winner, former Conn Smythe winner, right in the eyes, save for save, and said, "I got this." So I don't know. Anyone who thinks they should change goalies after one average game in Game 1, to me, is smoking crack. I mean, it's Dobus's net for sure in Game 2.
He is our hockey insider, Pierre Lebrun. Outside of the highlight that we just showed of Lane Hudson falling in the neutral zone, it's been a fantastic postseason for him. It's been a great year for him. Not good enough to be a finalist for the Norris Trophy. We also have a guy coming up at 5:30 who had 95 points this year, and Evan Bouchard, who also wasn't a finalist. It's a testament to how deep that position was this year. It's Cale Makar, Zach Werenski, and Rasmus Dahlin. What was your reaction to the news of those 3 guys being up for the award?
Well, for one, you could tell how much it mattered to Rasmus Dahlin, and I thought it was refreshing because hockey players are notorious for trying to deflect from individual spotlight and individual attention, and Dahlin allowed for the fact that, he's grinded to this moment here in his 7th NHL season, and I think it's gratifying to him that he was recognized, and that is, as he said, it mirrors his team's ascent, that the Sabres are in a great place now, and so it allowed him to get this kind of attention. But, you mentioned some names there, Mark, but in all the years I've voted on the Norris, I've never had more difficulty than I did this year. I took a long time researching it and putting in my votes. I will share that the 3 guys who got nominated today were among my 5 guys that I put on my 5-man ballot. But I believe that the Norris was 8 players deep this year. You mentioned Bouchard, definitely Lane Hudson. Quinn Hughes wasn't nominated today. Miro Heiskanen never gets talked about. I mean, let's be real. He had another great year. And Moritz Seider, I think deserves way more talk than he's gotten for his well-rounded game and what he meant to the Red Wings. So it was 8 deep for me, and it's going to be controversial. So controversy today because some big names weren't among the 3, but wait till all of the voting is revealed, as it will be once the winner's announced, because there will be people upset about where even the rest of those guys ended up in the rankings. So, Lane Hudson, by the way, we asked him about it today, and he was really great, and the way he described why Dahlin deserved to be nominated and what he loves about Dahlin's game. Again, a lot of respect between these 2 teams. and where they are.
Well, Pierre, you've done a great job breaking down this series, breaking down the award, but filling in for Brian Hayes, I have to finish this with a Leaf question. And I have to finish it with Austin Matthews.
You're yeah.
Just want to soften the blow a little bit, but your colleague Chris Johnston reporting earlier this week that Austin Matthews still isn't 100% sure that he wants to be with the Maple Leafs this year, and that there is speculation that he could be moving on depending on what the Leafs do this offseason. I only bring it up because, former Hart Trophy winners and guys who almost scored 70 goals in a season aren't on the market at all. So what have you heard from other teams hearing that report that suddenly they can go out and get a proven goal scorer like Austin Matthews?
Yeah, well, let's start by I made a few calls today knowing that I was coming on here. So let's just bring this up to date on where I think the Leafs are under new management. Number one, my understanding is that new GM John Donchika is throwing dates back and forth with Austin Matthews and agent Judd Moldover to get some face-to-face and for him to go down to Arizona and spend time with Austin Matthews and get a sense of where things are. And obviously from the Leafs perspective, they hope they can, sell their side of things to a point where Austin Matthews is on board with the vision of this offseason and where it's headed. That's a big if, but that's where that side of the process is. They want to get together at some point in the near future here. Number two, John Chayka is going to meet with Craig Berube in the next number of days here, I think by the end of the weekend, again, to see where the coach and the new GM are in terms of whether they're on the same page, whether they share a vision of where things need to go moving forward. If I had to handicap that part of it, I think that John Chayka will be comfortable with keeping Craig Berube as his head coach, but that's just a gut feeling on my part. We'll have to see how that meeting goes between the two sides. And finally, depending where the Matthews decision goes, I mean, that may influence, what happens at the draft with Toronto having the number one pick and whether or not the timing lines up for them to know what his decision is. This is where it gets tricky. I mean, John Chayka may leave Arizona and not have a firm answer yet from Austin Matthews, because it may be that Austin Matthews, as Chris wrote about this week, may need even more time, may need to see more of the revealing of the offseason before knowing whether or not he wants to stay. And that's the chicken and the egg of this whole thing. I think the Leafs would like to know where he is before they get going on the offseason, but Austin Matthews wants to see how the offseason plays out before he decides where he goes. And ultimately, that's the most delicate part of it. But to finally answer your question, if Austin Matthews is available, this isn't a situation where teams are just going to call from left field and say, I want in on this. They don't have a say. Austin Matthews and Judd Moldover have the say. They have a full no move. So if they decide they want to move on, if it's going to be a list of X teams, I can't imagine it'll be that long, and they go from there. So that's different than suggesting that 25 teams get to hop in on the sweepstakes. That's not how it would play out.
It could be a pretty wild offseason. We were pointing out the names of Brady Tkachuk and Austin Matthews and what just specifically some of the Canadian teams are going to be doing this offseason.
I feel like Struddy should be mentioning a name. I don't know. Is it just me or?
I don't know. The owners have some stuff they got. That to me, the goaltending pair is the thing they have to sort out. But that trade this offseason made things a little tighter, didn't it?
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. And listen, I think the important thing for all these hot spots, and there are a number of them, is that you get the sense from the agents involved and from teams involved, everyone wants to decompress and take a deep breath before they rush into anything that they may regret. Remove the emotion from it. Take a deep breath. It's a long off season, and when it comes to the bigger name players, I can't see any of them rushing into any kind of decision. I think they want to see how things play out.
Pierre, awesome stuff as always. Enjoy the Sabres Canadian series. Hopefully it's a deep one, and you can enjoy the fine people of both Buffalo and Montreal equally.
Oh, I already am. Looking forward to it. I'm actually driving this series because there's no direct flights between Buffalo and Montreal, so we're going old school.
All
I'm
right.
driving the series.
Love it.
All right. Road trip. Love it. Awesome stuff. All right. Thanks, Pierre. Appreciate it. There's Pierre LeBrun, our hockey insider, as the Sabres take Game 1 over the Canadiens. We're going to take a quick break. In the 5 o'clock hour, former NHL head coach Peter Laviolette and Evan Bouchard will join us as Overdrive continues on TSN 4 and 5, the TSN app, your home speakers, and live on YouTube.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Overdrive continuing on TSN 4 and 5, the TSN app, your home speakers, and live on YouTube. Mark Rowe alongside Jamie McLennan and Jason Strudwick. The Blue Jays back in town. They begin a series with the Angels tomorrow following a tough end of the road trip getting swept by the Rays. But good news, Noodles, your guy, Addison Barger, is coming back. He had another home run in single-A Dunedin yesterday. And I don't know if you saw the highlights. It was a no-doubter, but also I don't know if his jersey is getting smaller or he's working out even more.
Just jacked,
he is so big. Like it's just like he's very like I feel like his shoulders take up the entire batter's box.
He's thick, man. I love it though. He's
Bam.
gritty. Yeah, he is. And he's a baseball player. That's what he is. Like his parents, I believe, are like wealthy and built him like a field of dreams in their backyard and stuff. This guy's literally a baseball player. He's unbelievable. I love him.
I still love the story. He slept on Schneider's couch before one of the playoff games.
Yeah, like during the World Series.
It's incredible. I love that story. I love those two guys about that.
And I don't know if you get the commercials in Edmonton. I don't know if it's a local thing, but now they're on, I don't know if it's like Leon's or The Brick or one of those companies. It's Davis Schneider and Addison Barger.
Yeah.
Like testing out pull-out couches now, which I think is great marketing. But we're showing it on TSN 4 and 5. Look at that beast of a man just trotting around in South Florida, going yard on some prospect who's probably a couple years away from the majors. But good to see that he's back. John Gibbons is back in town with the Angels. Alec Manoah was making some comments today. But it's a long season, but the Jays need to get back on track given the start to the year. So. Looking forward to that series. Looking forward to chatting with Peter Laviolette and also Evan Bouchard at 5:30 as Overdrive continues on TSN 4 and 5, the TSN app, your home speakers, and live on YouTube.
This is Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Second hour of Overdrive. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Mark Rowe in for Brian Hayes, alongside Jimmy McLennan and Jason Strudwick. The boys are out at Copetown Woods today, and we have some video. I should mention Peter Laviolette's going to join us in about 5 minutes, and Evan Bouchard at 5:30. I'm just. We don't have the video necessarily ready for you at the moment, but I can explain to you guys that not only did O and Hayes get a Costco-sized box of Snickers, but they got T-shirts that say in the Snickers logo O-Dog and Hayes. So
I love it.
This is really all worked out to if they had a plan, it's worked out to their plan.
I'm more concerned of how they played because apparently O is like a very great, I mean, we all know he's a great golfer, but apparently he's a very impatient partner. Like, he doesn't want you, let's move it along here. And if you're holding him up, he just drives ahead, that type of stuff. So I don't know if you'd like to golf with him. Struddy, are you a decent golfer?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I mean, I can swing the wrenches pretty well. I was out the last couple of days and pretty happy with my performance, actually.
Like, are you scratch? Or are you kind of like a 10 handicapped? Or like,
no, I'm like a 10 handy. 10, I think I'm 10 or 11.
How do you feel about some of the guys here, and I know they're not alone, who go on to the Golf Canada app and check on the handicaps of their colleagues? Like Duffy.
It's public information. I think if you put it on that app, you can look at anyone's, because I can follow anyone's, can't I? That's my understanding.
No, for sure. But is that something that you do with your buddies? They're just like, I see your handicap's up to 13. What happened there?
No, I don't care. My favorite thing to do is I don't mind. People inflate them or whatever. I don't mind. But I just love chirping on the course. Man, do you remember a guy named Dorf? He was a character.
Do you remember Dorf?
Dorf on golf.
So Dorf on golf. So I play with this guy. He's a local doctor here in Edmonton, and he was standing in a sand trap, and he's already a short guy. And I said, "This looks like you're recreating Dorf on golf." I couldn't play the rest of the round. My buddies and I were laughing so hard, and he lost it, and it made it worthwhile. It was better than a hole in one. He lost it for the rest of the round, and so did I.
You got into his head, basically. That's what it was.
All over this doctor, this surgeon, actually. Just ask him how smart he is. And Dwarf on golf, I threw him off. He was done the rest of the game.
Well, you guys, who's the best golfer you ever played with? Is it an athlete? Do you ever play with, Ray Whitney or somebody like that?
I played with Ray for a little stinker. He can hit the ball. Ryan Whitney's pretty good, too.
Really?
For a guy that looks unathletic, he hits the ball a long ways.
Don't say that he looks unathletic.
I'm just going to let that sit, and it's going to get clipped and played somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Do not do that.
Yeah.
But, I'm trying to think. Ray Whitney is unbelievable. I had a teammate named Jeff Nielsen in Minnesota in the year expansion. I think I've told this story. We went to Pebble Beach, and he was, in flip-flops, and he shot a 72. He literally shot. He was unbelievable. And apparently he had a golf scholarship and a hockey scholarship at the University of Minnesota and somewhere else for golf. He told me, he's guys on the tour, he goes, I would destroy them in college. But he goes, really? I wanted to be a NHL player. And he was a fourth line, really smart player, made $500,000-600,000 a year as a fourth line winger. But he could have been an unbelievable golfer. People tell me that all the time. I golfed with him. I just sat in the cart and watched him put an absolute clinic on at Pebble Beach. It was unreal.
Struddy, how much did you golf during your career?
I didn't like to play during the season too much. Although this one time with the Oilers, we had our owner took us out, and on the first hole there was a few drinks, so we had a pretty good day. So anyways, Ladislav Smid in his backswing, I don't know how it happened. I was kind of walking, my arm kind of went in front of me. He wrapped his pitching wedge around my arm, and it snapped the pitching wedge. Not my arm, the pitching wedge. I was like, you can't break this. You can't. I'd had a few drinks by this time, right? I'm like, you can't take this down. And we were just going crazy. And the worst part, it was our caddy's club. He lost it.
Oh, no.
He lost it. I'm like, you should be impressed. You saw a club break over another human's arms. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm. That is literally a flex. Right?
It was unintentional. Unintentional. I wish it was intentional, but still impressive.
Right. Love it. That's crazy. I don't know, but I going golfing during the season, when you go to those warm weather climates, you just have to win games though, Ro. That's the biggest thing, because if your GM or coach sees you having a good time and then you throw up a dud the next day or the following day, they're pissed, because the coach will come in and go 0 for 6 this year in the sun. We'd go into Tampa, into Florida, through California and get rinsed. And then he would have the stats sitting on the board. Any warm weather climate, we were 0 for. So he'd be pissed about it.
Yeah. That's the fun of being in those markets as well, where in contrast, when you're in Toronto or Edmonton, you're not golfing during the season. And, the joke is that, the day after the season ends, that the Leafs are golfing, and that's not something that anyone wants to be in April or early May golfing if you're playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And joining us down the Maple Toyota hotline is Peter Laviolette. So I don't know if I should be talking golf at this point, because I know he's all business usually when it comes to the Stanley Cup playoffs. But might as well ask you, when your season ended, how quickly were you out on the course and getting away from the game and playing something that you try to hold off on playing golf as long as you can during the hockey season?
Yeah, I don't play at all during the season. I'm not a huge golfer, so I do get out. I find my best rounds probably the first or second round of the year, when I don't have any stress. And as it moves into August and close to training camp, everything just comes. The wheels just fall right off the cart, literally. But I don't play that. I don't play that much. I think probably because I'm down here in Florida, the humidity is just wicked. My boys grab me, we'll go out and play 9 holes, 18 holes, maybe a couple times a month, but nothing every day.
So, Lavi, what was your philosophy as a coach where you knew your boys were teeing it up? I mean, your players, not your sons, your players on the road. You know, say you guys are heading out to California and maybe it's a day off in between games. Were you fine with it? Would you look the other way, or was it more result based? If they threw a dud up the next game, were you like pissed off that they went out to the course?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you go on those long trips, the players kind of work it out and they go golfing. And listen, they're going to do what they want to do on their days off. I think when you're in the playoffs, or close to the playoffs or coming down the stretch, I think there's always conversations just to say, hey, these are good things to do that help you. These are things that probably will take away from your game and put you in a different direction, and you try to control what you control. I think there's always those type of meetings, but there's no question that the guys are slipping off to play golf when they go out to California or down to Florida. They're trying to find a place to tee it up.
Well, I always found the problem, and I don't know what your philosophy as a coach was, but the pool day. If we had a pool day the next day, my legs were nothing. And I didn't have the best legs to start with. Those were frowned on, I got to believe, by a coach.
Yeah, I think anything that's going to take away. I mean, you're going out at night, you're going to a pool, you're going golfing, whatever it is that you're going to do. But I also find too, Strutty, that guys that they're professionals and they try to manage that. So if it's the day before the game, maybe they're trying to manage what they do a little bit more as opposed to 2 days before a game. Or if you get caught 3 days out in California and you decide you're going to go to the beach or something like that. I mean, those are your own days, and you can do what you want to do. But I don't know. I'd like to think that, but I could just be naive too. You know what I mean? I'd like to think that the players realize where they're at and count on them. But I do realize though, when the games are big, when some things are big, it's the responsibility of the coach to kind of jump in there and say, "Hey, we got a big one tomorrow. This is for first in the conference, or this clinches our playoff spot, or we're in the playoffs, so knock it off." You know what I mean? And hopefully they listen.
I had a teammate that fell asleep by the pool for his pregame nap, and he missed the game that night with a sunburn. Can you imagine?
That's tough, man. And then to come in red like that, too, like a lobster, because there's a good chance of coming from some place with no sun, and so it's nothing but a red lobster walking in the room.
Yeah. Well, Lavia, unfortunately, the team that plays in this city has been able to golf for the last few weeks because the Toronto Maple Leafs, for the first time since 2016, did not make the playoffs, and it has been, to put it mildly, a wild week for this organization. Take me through the coach's perspective of, you have that press conference, you have your best player potentially deciding, I want to move away from this situation, and he might be playing somewhere else next year. And then you get the number one pick in the draft. How quickly, especially with the best player element, how quickly are you talking to your GM when you read a story like we saw on The Athletic this week?
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy week for sure. The best player thing in a GM, I think all that's going to work itself out, and I don't really have the input on that. The new GM getting named, and so that's a lot of talk and a lot of conversation in a city like Toronto for sure. I think for me, kind of the icing on the cake for the week was getting that number one pick overall, watching the draft lottery. It was actually really cool to watch it. I'm down here in Florida and I'm out of it a little bit. I'm not in Toronto. And so to put that on and watch that and how it happened live, and for them to get it, that's a huge pull. I mean, that's a huge pickup because they do have, their last pick was Austin Matthews, right? Number one pick overall, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so they have him, and now they go and they get, potentially another star player like him to come in and probably provide immediate help for their team. So you pick up a young player that could be with you for, 10, 15, 18 years, whatever it might be. And so that's a huge pickup on a busy week for Toronto. I'm sure any coach who was watching that was jumping through the moon because he's clearly the consensus coming out of it that I'm reading and that I'm seeing. He's the number one coming out of it, and that's a big boost for your lineup. You get a young big player like that can produce. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it certainly is. And let's turn our attention to the teams that are still playing. So you look at Montreal Buffalo last night, and they've got through to the second round. It's kind of first time around for these cores. I mean, I know the Suzuki and Caulfield made it to the finals in the bubble, but outside of that, what do you make of that game last night? I don't know if you laid eyes on it, but two very fast, skilled young teams. How do you like that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit different than the Montreal Tampa series, I thought. But you're right, skilled, fast, moving up and down the ice. I don't think it was as bad as what the score says. I mean, 2 power play goals, especially teams, it just dictates play, or it can dictate games. I don't know if it can dictate a series, but it can absolutely dictate a game. So 2 goals on the power play, for Buffalo, I think is big. You win that advantage, there's a good chance you're going to win the hockey game. So, for me, I still think that Montreal played a pretty good game. I don't think it was a horrible game. They blocked a lot of shots. They forced a lot of shots to the outside. They kept them from a defensive standpoint, I think, under 20 shots in the game. And so, again, a pretty good game from them defensively. I said it before. I honestly think it's going to come down to them creating. And I said Buffalo is going to score 3 or 4 and maybe 5. So in order to win a game, you have to score 4 or 5 or 6. 6 is not easy to do, but unless you're in a different series than this one, then it's really easy to score 6 or 9 or whatever it might be. But this series, from what Montreal was, that was the big thing for me, is that they have to produce more than they did against Tampa. They did a great job of blocking shots. They did a great job defensively. Their goalie played really well. But in order to move on, you have to produce. That top line's got to get going from a 5-on-5 standpoint, just production-wise. Power play's okay, but you've got to have the big dogs, producing in order to get past Buffalo. I don't think it was a terrible game. I don't think it was necessarily the score and a shellacking by Buffalo, but they've got to they got to continue the good defense, and they got to put some offense on the board. They got to put some goals in the back of the net, especially 5-on-5.
Watching the Canes and Flyers, I have nightmares about the way the Canes play. They're so disruptive, and they put so much pressure on you to make quick plays. So if you're looking at that series, how can the Flyers just find just a little bit more time to make a play?
We, just a couple years ago, we're in New York. We ended up playing the Canes in the second round, and you're absolutely right. I don't know if there's a team that forces things or disrupts things more on the ice. There's games that you can go down into Carolina and you can walk off with a 3-1 win, and you're in your room just hating the way you played. I mean, you got out attempted at the net 95 to 38, and you're like, oh, gee, how do we even? But a win's a win in the playoffs, and you take it. And that happened a couple times for us. And I think the one thing for me is that you have to match them in that aggressiveness, that skating, and that physicality, and that battle that they have. You have to match it. And a lot of teams have that already in the playoffs, but the one thing for me with them is you have to be physical, you have to be heavy on the puck, you have to play the game fast. And if you don't, you're going to be second everywhere against that team. It's their forecheck, it's the way that they slam the offensive zone, it's the way that they close forward in the neutral zone on defense. It's not this passive backward game. And then in the D zone coverage, I mean, it's quick to close as a 5-man unit, so there's not a lot of time and space. It's about winning races back to the net. It's about getting above them on the rush. And so all those things have to be done really quick and with pace, and then you get a chance. But there's been so many teams that have played Carolina, and really, if you look at it, they don't come out on the right. Maybe they come out on the right side of the score, but they don't come out on the right side of the analytics or the numbers or the scoring chances, whatever it might be.
Lavi, I was going to say, your former team looks pretty good as they play your former team, and they're two teams that you've had a lot of success with, and it's so great to get your perspective of the Stanley Cup playoffs because you've gone on deep runs and they've all looked a little differently with different types of teams, and we're still just getting into the second round, but who's the team that impresses you the most so far this postseason?
I mean, it's too easy to say that it's Carolina and Colorado, but it is. If you just watch them play, and they're both playing good teams, especially Colorado playing Minnesota. I mean, and yet Colorado seems to have their way with it a little bit. And the one thing about Colorado is that you've got to make sure defensively that you're above them all the time, from the offensive zone, the neutral zone, and then the interior and the defensive zone. Like, you have to make sure there's so much speed and attack off of that game. It seems like they're hard to beat. It seems like Carolina's going to be hard to beat. it seems like they're lining up on a path just the way they're playing the game. I mean, they both kind of play it similarly. I mean, and what a series would be? You know what I mean? Just from a speed and from an attack standpoint. But I think somebody could catch Carolina. I don't know if somebody, if Minnesota can't do it, I don't know. I'm not sure. There's something on the other in the rest of in the other division in there on the West that can take that down. And so they look dynamic to me. They look fast. They look like they have scoring chances all the time. They defend pretty good as well. They have star players, like elite players on their team that can make a difference. And those two teams to me look like they got it going on.
Lavi, it's a bit of a strange question, but is it hard to coach ultra elite players? You just talked about system and being above it, all of that type of stuff. But you see in the NHL now, there's a cut above players that kind of freewheel. And, how hard is it to allow them the long leash to make plays, but also they make mistakes and have keep them accountable? Is it a lot tougher than you make it?
No, I think there's coaching that goes on with what you're talking about. Everybody needs a message and a direction and a plan out on the ice. I do think that you don't want to curb the creativity. I mean, I've worked with some really good players, like in New York, Artemi Panarin. I think he's brilliant. Like, I think he's brilliant out on the ice. And so the last thing you want to do is, we had 1 year, I think we had my first year, he had 125 points or something like that, 121. He was up there. And the last thing you want to do is take that and try to tone that down. But again, it gets to a point where you need some structure, and they need to understand they still have to be taught or shown, or what it is that we're trying to do, whether it's back checking or getting above the rush or off of a forecheck, whatever it might be. And I'm not saying him, I'm just saying I think there's coaching that goes on with all players, but I do think that there's more, there's a little bit more leeway, a little bit more wiggle room with the elite players. Roman Josi was a really good offensive defenseman. Back when I had him, he's 20, 25, 27, 28, 29 years old. He was elite. I mean, he could attack the ice. He was an effortless skater. He could put up points. He was a great defender. He was a great leader. His game, to me, there's still room to coach and to show and to teach, but in the same sense, you want to make sure that you're not handcuffing him, and he's taking what he needs out on the ice as well. And you're right. You look at the defensemen. You look at the two defensemen in the Colorado-Minnesota series. You look at Dahlin. I think Buffalo's top four defensemen are really good. Like, I think that could be a difference maker. Dahlin really getting a chance to show, like with those other two guys, the impact that he could have as he grows through a playoff series, and he gets that opportunity to shine. I think he's as good as the others, but he's certainly in that category, and he has that opportunity in the playoffs here. But I don't think you want to do anything to try and curb that either.
Peter Laviolette joining us on OverDrive. And Lavi, you've seen it all in the Stanley Cup playoffs, including a very improbable run in 2010 with the Flyers. You were hired in the middle of the season. You got to the Stanley Cup final. You had that epic comeback against Boston. But I want to take you back to Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Final when you eliminated Montreal to go to the Cup final. And I'm bringing it up because I was in the building simply as a fan. And I was a neutral fan, and yet I happened to be wearing, I guess, some sort of Hockey Canada shirt. And I had like 10 and 12-year-olds say things to me that I can't say on air right now. And I don't know if you remember when Halak came out he got aggressive and tried to poke check, and he missed it, and Mike Richards scores that goal, and like the building is shaking. It was my first real experience of a crowd being intimidating and just, having a factor in the game. And I bring it up because you've been in so many different places, where are the spots where you can point to and say, that crowd has a difference?
Well, you're talking about like moving the building a couple feet by the fans and the way they react to the game.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So
right. Like,
I think Montreal is one of those buildings. It's hard not to get juiced up when you walk onto the ice of Montreal, and sometimes it goes dark, and they've got one of those songs going on, and the older players that were around 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and the highlights, and you can just feel it kind of building inside of it. Buffalo, I think, is a really tough place to play. My first year was in the Nassau Coliseum, And it wasn't a wow type of building, but the ceiling was really low. We played Toronto in that first round. I could not even. There's nobody that could hear me on the bench. Not my players, not my assistant coaches. It was just so loud in there. I think a lot. It's playoffs, and everybody kind of gets that way. Everybody's building's probably pretty good. I've been in Vegas, and Vegas can be really loud, really crazy. There's just great building. I think it's just the playoff hockey that brings it out, and out of the fans and out of the players, and they see the product on the ice, and then they react to what they're seeing, and usually their reactions are warranted. The game on the ice is so good, especially in the playoffs, that it just makes it really, really easy for the fans to become super involved in the game and to really shake that building.
Of the teams you took into the playoffs and the runs you had, do you remember a moment where, and it could be a great play or a moment where someone settled the team down or took over a game for your club, where you're like, you just like that? I coach younger kids, and I just have moments where I remember the kid he just does it. He just takes over. So
yeah.
You had that, or a moment of talking you can share with us?
So the biggest one for me is probably in the finals in Carolina, and we had lost in Game 5 at home, and we got a power play with 1 second left in the third period. And so we were going to get a minute 59 on fresh ice in our building. They showed on the TV, might have been a TV on in the locker room, and the guy was polishing the cup up, and he was getting it ready, and the power play goal. And I remember that they scored a shorty about 30 seconds into the period, and we had to go back to Edmonton. We were up, I think, 3-1 in the series, so that made it 3-2. So we had to go to Edmonton for Game 6. And I'm telling you that we got destroyed. I mean destroyed. I remember looking up at the second period, and the shots were like 28-6. And we ended up losing the game. I think it might have been 4-0 or 5-0, something like that. And something had to be said after the game. Like that was one of those times where I would go in the locker room, because you had to regroup and you had to adjust, and something needed to be said or needed to be done. And I got about halfway there, and Rod Brindamore had stood up, and you could hear his voice in the locker room as he was addressing the team, and the confidence in which he spoke. And I pumped the brakes right there, and I said, Roddy's in there. I'm out of there. I'm not going in there now. I'm following that message and that voice. I think when a captain stands up in a room, even during the regular season, if he can stand up in the room and grab the team, that's when the coach should just turn around and walk the other way and let those words stand. And so we were lucky too. We had to fly back to Carolina for Game 7. There was a couple days before the Game 7. And so we could lick our wounds on the first, on the flight home or whatever, but then you have a practice before the game, because it was a couple of days, and it was a chance to go out there and sweat as a group and get really positive and take Rod's message and put things together and have meetings and feel good about it. And arguably one of the best games that our team played the entire year was Game 7 against Edmonton. I think it was a 3-2 hockey game. Cam Ward made a save with I think maybe 6 minutes to go that kept us at 3-2, and Justin Williams scored an empty netter, and we ended up winning. But it was just that was a phenomenal moment for me when Rod, and that was his leadership. That was Roddy and his leadership and what he was capable of. He didn't go in there a lot. But when he did, that was it. People stopped and they listened, and that was a big moment for us, and that certainly in that series.
And you probably knew in that moment one day he's going to be a great head coach, and you would be right, as he continues to lead the Hurricanes in that series against the Flyers, which resumes tonight. Peter, really appreciate you joining us. Love your work so far on TSN, and looking forward to seeing more of it on SportsCenter.
Great, guys. Have a good night. Take care.
There you have it. Peter Laviolette joined us on the Maple Toyota hotline. Ragtag days are here. Check out the Toyota Crown Signia. Effortless, tranquil, beautifully designed, and remarkably distinctive. Visit Maple Toyota near Canada's Wonderland in the Maple Auto Mall. A lot of good stories coming from Peter Laviolette. You think of how many teams he took to a Stanley Cup final, won a Stanley Cup, even the Islanders, who was early in his career at Nassau Coliseum. You guys all have Nassau Coliseum stories, it seems like.
Oh, of course, of course. I mean, Strutty and I were both drafted to the Islanders, so we've got plenty of NHL and minor league stories there.
Turn that franchise around. like Matthew Schaefer.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of great defensemen, Evan Bouchard is going to join us next after a great season with the Oilers as he now prepares to play for Team Canada at the World Hockey Championship. His OverDrive continues right after the break.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
OverDrive continuing on TSN 4 and 5, the TSN app, your home speakers, and live on YouTube. Mark Rowe in for Brian Hayes today alongside Jamie McLennan and Jason Strudwick. Joining us now is a man who not only had 95 points to lead all defensemen in the NHL, he had 14 more points than the next defenseman. It has been an incredible year for Evan Bouchard, who now joins us on OverDrive. Evan, appreciate you joining us today. How you doing?
Good. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
We're excellent. It's great to be able to chat with you. I know it would be your preference to still be playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but at what point, like how many days do you need to properly reflect on a year where, at least individually, you took your game to another level?
Yeah, I guess you kind of never really do get over it. It's weird kind of having hockey done with the Oilers start of May. Definitely not used to that, but you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. Now you get a little more time to rest, recover, and get ready for a good one next year again.
So, Evan, are you, what goes through the process of you joining Team Canada to play in the World Championships as opposed to maybe taking a little extra time to let the body heal and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, with Team Canada, it's always an honor when you get the ask. And for me to have hockey over, like I said, early May is something that I'm not too familiar with. So to get the call from them to go play, I feel like it was a no-brainer, and get a few more games with Team Canada.
Switzerland's not a bad place to go, let's be honest. If there was maybe another place, would you be quite so anxious to jump on a plane?
Yeah, exactly. That definitely helps the decision for sure.
And what about you and Darnell? You guys are both going. Would you guys do it independently, or did you talk about it, after the season ended?
We honestly didn't talk about it much. I got a message, and I hopped on board, and I think it was a day later, Norris called me and asked what I was doing, what the plan was. I let him know, and I think he made the decision pretty quickly to go as well.
Well, it's great to have you as part of a Team Canada roster that I know hasn't officially been announced, but has a ton of talent, and looking forward to seeing you guys compete for a gold medal. There was some news today when it came to individual awards, and the finalists for the Norris Trophy have come up, and a lot of the talk is just on how there are some great defensemen who weren't part of the finalists, and just it was one of the deepest years for your position. You unfortunately did not make the cut, but I just wonder how much was that on your mind, and how much is that a goal of yours each year to be a part of the top three going for the Norris Trophy in your position?
For sure. Yeah, when I saw that come out, I was definitely upset a little bit. But you can't really let that bother you. You don't really think about it too much during the season. You got a bigger picture team thing. So yeah, I didn't think about it too much until it came out today. Stings a little bit, but you know what? You get back at it and you forget about it. And like you said, there's a lot of great defensemen in the league, so it's kind of hard to pick between three of them.
So, Evan, your game has evolved over the years, and, when you look at it, you've never had the issue putting up the points because you've always been offensive, a great first pass and a big shot from the point. But, how have you worked at rounding out your game to be a complete defender so that, we talked about it in the 4 o'clock hour, you're out on the penalty kill a lot too. So you're being trusted in all different situations. Is it something that it's a conscious effort? Is it working with Paul Coffey? Is it just through experience over the years? What have you been able to do to help round out your game?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a conscious effort. And now it starts to come a little more naturally. For me, I'm not going to go, run around, be the big, heavy, hard defenseman to usually play against. I try to do that with, having a good stick, denying blue lines. I think little things like that are ways that I'm trying to, especially evolve on the defensive side of things.
So you talk about evolving on the defensive side. Is it more like you try to copy other guys? Or is that home or the coaching staff? Like, where are you kind of stealing or mimicking these ideas from?
I feel like it's a lot of game film. You kind of watch yourself play, and you can see little things if it's gapping up a little better at the offensive blue line to make things easier, denying the blue line, little things like that. Playing with a guy like Eki makes it a lot easier. If I try to do something, make a mistake, he's usually there to cover up for me. So that helps too, to give you confidence in the D zone.
Oilers defenseman Evan Bouchard joining us on OverDrive. And when we always hear about the exit interviews, it's the coach or it's the management team talking to the player and evaluating the year that they had. But when you're at the level that a player like you're at, I'm sure they want to get your thoughts as well. Give us your assessment of the situation right now with the Edmonton Oilers and what you guys need to do to take that next step. I
think everyone's very much on the same page that it was a disappointing year for everyone as a group. Like I said, I just don't think we were, a complete group, everyone on the same page. And I think everyone's aware of that. And I think everyone's really going to, push to get back to where we were last season, a couple seasons ago, to get back to, getting the end goal, and that's getting to the Cup finals and winning the Cup this time.
Now, how hard was it when you're in the playoffs and you're battling, but then you also see Connor's injury, Leon's injury, Dickinson's injury, Henrique's injury? That's pretty much your four centermen right down the middle. I mean, it's a walking mash unit. Everybody plays hurt. We all know that. But at the end of the day, was it just injuries and you mentioned inconsistencies that just you couldn't overcome against Anaheim?
Yeah, that definitely doesn't help when you got four guys like that injured. But at the same time, it's time for other people to step up. Unfortunately for myself, I didn't do that, and I think there was other guys that could have stepped up a little more too. But in the end, we're a team, and when guys are hurt, playing through injuries, you really have to find a way to step up. And a few of us didn't do that this series against Anaheim.
Yeah, so you guys, ran up a little short this year. The last 2 years were unbelievable for Oilers fans. So, is there a point here where, and I know you're going to go play in the World Champs and you just kind of relax, but is there a reflection on maybe, what year 1, 2, 3 kind of look like, and as a group, what you guys can maybe alter or adjust to kind of get back to where you want?
I think first and foremost is everyone getting healthy. Then after that, I think there's a few system changes we can do. I think there's a team aspect in the D zone. Everyone playing together in the D zone. With the Oilers, we score enough goals to win. It's about keeping the puck out of our net. I think if we have a team first mindset, protecting the puck, keeping it out of our net, then it's things will go up for us.
So what's your thought process now? You go play for Team Canada. What's the break for you in the off season? Once you're done, do you take a week off? Do you take a couple weeks off, let the body heal up, and right back at training? Or today's athlete's a lot different than me and Struddy when we played. We'd be drinking and smoking right till August, and then fire back up
on the way to camp.
For me, it was. Like I said, no-brainer to go get a few more games in with Team Canada, be back June 1st, hopefully, and take a few weeks off, at least for now. Get to stay in the hockey mood. June 1st, take a couple weeks off, get back at it, and get ready for camp in September.
Awesome stuff. Well, Evan, congratulations on a great season. We're looking forward to you suiting up for Team Canada and winning that World Championship and ending your season on a high note. But we appreciate you joining us here on OverDrive, and best of luck in Switzerland.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
There you have it. Evan Bouchard, defenseman for the Edmonton Oilers and for the Canadian team that will be going over to Switzerland. And again, they haven't officially named the roster, but we've heard a lot of reports like Macklin Celebrini, John Tavares, Ryan O'Reilly, Robert Thomas, Evan Bouchard. I would think on paper will have the most talented team there.
Yeah, that looks like a rock star team if they, if everybody commits to it, and it sounds like
in an
they
Olympic
are.
year too.
Yeah.
Like I know Evan didn't get named to the Olympic team, and that was a disappointment. But like I wasn't expecting Macklin Celebrini to say yes, given his year. So it'll be great to see him there.
Yeah.
I was more surprised that Bouchard and Nurse went, and it just he just played so much, and obviously they're healthy compared to some of the guys you mentioned, Noodles, for the Oilers and other guys around the league. But I would have thought maybe let's just take a break, take your 2 weeks now, like it did.
Yeah.
It does take a while to kind of get healthy, even if you have no real injuries.
Yeah.
I always found it took 2 or 3 weeks just to work out the kinks and kind of get yourself feeling good. That's if you had no real injuries, and then start feeling good and get after it again.
This is a little bit, maybe this is out of left field, but don't you think Bouchard's trying to maybe develop that relationship with Team Canada?
For
Like
sure.
I thought he was snubbed.
Yeah.
And, to me, if you don't, you heard stories that Nick Suzuki didn't go to the Worlds and maybe that, like that type of stuff. That's why in Four Nations. And I don't know how that is. To me, if you're the best players get taken, regardless if they go to the World Championships or not. But at the end of the day, Bouchard, I think is still trying to develop that relationship with Team Canada. I think next time around, he has to be in the conversation to be there, just based on, Drew Doughty's aging out, that type of stuff, Colton Parayko aging out potentially. So I think he already would be in that conversation. Mm-hmm. But there has to be more to it than just say, I want to keep playing hockey. So that might be a layer to it.
Like saying that there's politics has such a negative connotation, but when you have such a deep talent pool like Canada does, you might have to show your federation what you can do, not just at the NHL level, but at the international level. And I haven't seen the whole roster, but let's just presume he's the number one guy, and he can show them something that, not only can I be the guy in the power play, and not only can I be the guy who's going to lead our team offensively from the blue line, but in a 2-1 game, I'll be that guy that can shut down the opposition as well. And maybe their opinion changes a little bit.
Yeah,
well,
it's different when you're in front of someone, right? When they can actually see you and see how you behave and act. And not that either one of those things are a problem, but I think that's a good point, Noodles. It's clear that everyone wants to play for their country, especially the Olympic. Like, there's nothing I would have not done to get onto the Olympic team.
Yeah. And he might be there in 4 years.
I think he should be, but my point being is I think you also have to know, he knows his body and knows that he wants to keep playing. But if that's the tipping factor, I think he also has to focus on, not him a bounce back year, because he had a great year, but I think a bounce back year for his team and do what's best for, if they want to get back to having a long
take
run
advantage of a real off season, because the Oilers and the Panthers have not, and that's one of the reasons why we're all kind of watch out for Florida next year, because they're actually going to get a real off season, which they haven't had.
Exactly. Yeah.
Before we break, two real athletes who were out on the golf course today. We mentioned that they got their Snickers. We mentioned that they got their T-shirts. There is video evidence for those watching on TSN 4 and 5 and on YouTube of them getting their gift bags from the golf course. And in case O didn't get enough the last time he was at Copetown, there you have it, the Hayes and O-Dog T-shirts, which I pray that they're wearing tomorrow on the show.
Love it.
And then they will go deep into, like I said, this is like a Costco-sized Snickers, like that's what like a convenience store
There's
has.
the handshake again from O. Just O loves handing the handshake out to everybody. But, honestly, I'm disappointed. Maybe there should have been a Noodles one, but maybe I was cut out of the loop.
I hope so, but
cut right out of the loop.
Stock in Snickers has gone through the roof over the last week because of the show. Anyways, good for them. I'm glad they had a good day on the golf course and gave me an opportunity to hang out with you guys. We're going to take one more break. Our best bets are next.
The Tempo's inaugural season tips off against the Mystics on TSN.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. We are hammering the Flyers-Canes game. We're going to take the Flyers plus 1.5. Porter Martone, 3+ shots, and we're going to take the over, which is set at 5.5 goals. That pays plus 591. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Same-game parlays are available for every Stanley Cup playoff game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 19+ and physically located in Ontario. Mark Rowe in for Brian Hayes today alongside Jamie McLennan and Jason Strudwick and Noodles. It is always so much fun to be on this show and get to work with you and get to work with Struddy, who I find is one of the most entertaining guys in the business. I know that he was a good hockey player. I wasn't aware that he is not the best hockey player in his family.
Isn't this crazy? He is. So, listen, Joe put up the picture here because his son,
look at that,
Kane Strudwick, was drafted 4th round. Isn't that unbelievable? Tri-City Americans, man. That's unbelievable. Big Kane. Like, that's and he's got good feet, not like his old man. It's awesome.
Is his play to fire it off the glass as well, Struddy?
No. How's Kaner?
Yeah, those days are over. You know what? I'll say this. This guy's dad was way more invested in getting him power skating lessons than my dad was. I always tell my dad, if you had invested in me like other people had, I might have been an all-star. I would have been one of the greatest 6 defensemen of all time. But no, my dad spent it on furniture and my sister's braces.
Oh. Yeah, well, there you go. But Kane goes to – so I didn't know – like, I don't know any of this. My son's not old enough to be involved in all of this stuff. But so tell us the story. Like, is this Western Hockey League draft? Like, I thought it was – I forgot how old Kane was. So I'm like, is he even eligible to be drafted the Western Hockey League? And he was.
Yeah, so we do it a year earlier than, I think, for sure the OHL, and I think the Q or whatever they call it now. We do it when they're after their U15 year. So so last night was the first round and today was it, and it's an interesting process, right? These poor kids feel a lot of pressure. You try to insulate it from them, but a good experience. And then if you get drafted, great. You now know what team you go play for. And if you don't, well then you got to keep working because not everyone's going to make that it was drafted. So yeah, it's really interesting. It was an interesting year. I helped coach the team. Morally, the higher skill is what I taught them. Obviously, you guys know that.
Of course.
But it was fun, and anyone who's been through it and just being around it, the energy of the boys or any team is a lot of fun. So it was a good day for him and for his buddies that also got drafted.
More importantly, did Kane attend your hockey schools, and are you now going to market the fact that he is now going to go play in the WHL, and thus you're going to make more money off of these hockey schools?
Yeah, so I actually brought that to his attention. I said, you're now the poster boy of my camps.
It's not you, right?
Yeah, the problem is he's a forward. I run D-man camps. So,
oh, no. Okay.
He's gonna dump and chase on your D-man. That's what he's going to do, run him over in the corner. I love it. Tri-Cities, too. Man, that's a gritty building there. Our old buddy Terry Degner was the captain back in the day, and I had a line brawl in Tri-Cities one night. I came in 3rd in a fight. Their tough guy beat me up at the end of the game. It's ridiculous. I still have nightmares about this guy. So Kane's going to be playing in that building potentially. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, I played in Kamloops, and we used to spank Tri-Cities for fun. So hopefully it'll be a little bit different now. We had Damon Lankow, pretty good player. Terry Ryan was there as well. He shut him down.
Yeah, exactly. Love it. Well, congrats to Kane. Congrats to Kane, the star of the Strudwick family. I love it.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Always appreciate getting to work with you guys. Always appreciate getting to fill in for Brian Hayes. Noodles, it was fun working with you last night as we get set now for Game 2 between the Canadiens and Sabres tomorrow, and we get set for a wild offseason for the Leafs. The boys will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.